To express Indigenous culture, I picked the movie Smoke Signals for many reasons, not just because I loved it a lot when I was younger, but also because I feel it fits the two narratives that Native Americans need to fit into a lot. So the first category would be fitting a lot of the stereotypes of being stoic and or careless. Victor, one of the main characters, actually fits into that role perfectly. He's super resilient, strong, and aware of the world created before him. The bad part of his character is he lashes out a lot because he's well guarded, and it just kind of makes him seem like a bully. On the other end would be Thomas, the other main character. He's optimistic, hopeful, and loves to tell stories. He's in a good mood a lot, and when he is, he likes to smile, which Victor shames him for smiling, saying he's not a real Indian, or saying you have to look mean, otherwise white people will run all over you. I find the relationship that these two have super cool, and I feel it's amazing to watch their journey throughout the movie and how their identity changes as the film progresses.
Hey, Victor!
Now to dive deeper into the film Smoke Signals. It's a captivating movie, really, directed by Chris Eyre, that dives into the complexities of Native American culture and identity. The film follows the journey of two young men named Victor Joseph and Thomas Builds the Fire as they embark on a road trip to retrieve the ashes of Victor's father. Through a series of flashbacks and conversations, we learn about the strained relationship between Victor and his father, Arnold. The movie explores themes such as forgiveness, healing, and the power of storytelling. It highlights the importance of understanding one's roots and embracing cultural heritage. Through skillfully placed humor and serious subjects, Smoke Signals displays an up and down roller coaster of discovering what it means to be Native American in today's society. Overall, Smoke Signals is a thought-provoking movie that sheds light on Native American experiences in contemporary society. It challenges stereotypes while celebrating cultural resilience and personal transformations. The director and writing team of the movie Smoke Signals even stated that they wanted to distance the story from the typical politics that surround reservation life. Instead of talking about alcoholism, injustice, and loneliness, they wanted to create a light-hearted story about two men and their journey, while also keeping the true meaning still intact and informing unknowledgeable people about things Native Americans have to go through in their everyday lives. So at the start of this movie, Victor, one of the main characters, has to go get his father's remains, his ashes. And in this movie, Victor is struggling a lot already with trying to find himself, trying to find his identity and who he is. Just through tons of past trauma in his life, it's difficult for him. So Thomas, another main character, decides he's going to go with Victor and help him on his journey, maybe cheer him up a little bit, be a partner to travel all the way to Arizona with. And Victor meets Thomas again and initially dismisses him as an annoying eccentric. But as their journey progresses, Victor begins to see the world through Thomas's perspective and learn that the world isn't full of as much hate as he once thought. Victor then learns that Thomas is super helpful to him, as Thomas teaches Victor about forgiveness and acceptance through his storytelling and unwavering optimism. He helps Victor understand the importance of embracing one's heritage and finding peace within oneself. Thomas's perspective allows Victor to confront a lot of his demons and his problems and heal from his painful past and truly learn who he is supposed to be in life. Now, on the other side of things, Victor also helps Thomas learn who he's supposed to be, help him with his identity. And Thomas learns from Victor how to be assertive and stand up for what he believes in, to be more of a confident person. As they face various challenges together, Victor's determination fires Thomas up and helps him find his own voice and express himself, learning to become a strong man and what it truly means to be Indigenous in the modern day. Through their friendship, as they travel throughout this journey together to Arizona, they learn and grow emotionally and spiritually, all from their interactions with one another. They learn that true strength lies in vulnerability and that healing comes from understanding one's roots. In this way, Smoke Signals highlights the transformative power of friendship and how individuals can learn from one another and truly figure out who they're supposed to be, to become better versions of themselves and help one another throughout their journeys to find their identities and who they're supposed to be.
Hey, Victor, sorry to hear about your dad.
Again, I truly think that the true meaning of Smoke Signals is to portray two different people learning from one another, portraying a beautiful dynamic between those two characters who initially seem very incompatible, but ultimately teach each other valuable life lessons as their journey serves as like a reminder that we all have someone to learn from and we all have things that we can change about ourselves to be better people. They remain open-minded throughout the rest of the movie, enough to listen to one another and to not judge someone based on their looks or initial interactions. They learn, and go from being completely opposite people to being best friends by the end. So now I'm going to be going over the 6 core concepts and how they're super relevant within the movie Smoke Signals and how they're shown and how it affects the main characters as well as indigenous communities. Although colonialism is kind of tricky to find right off the bat, it's really deep rooted within the film. I mean, Victor and Thomas, they start off on a reservation, which kind of shows like we've taken their land and split it up into smaller bits and said, here, stay out of ours, you can have yours, which isn't really fair. I mean, that in itself is colonialism. And then they have to go all the way to another reservation in Arizona to go get his father's ashes. It seems hardly fair. And they're stripped of a lot of their privileges, and it puts this big scar on indigenous communities, and it's still very prevalent today as it's not being taken from, but it's the long-lasting effects of colonialism that really seem to be shown in this movie. Cultural appropriation is another kind of tricky one to show off in this movie, but it really is highlighted and exploited within this movie. Things like rituals, symbols, and traditions were taken at the time when this movie was created in 1996 and consumed through main culture and said, hey, this is everyone's to share, which isn't right. The significance of those things were taken out of them and kind of shared with everybody, and they lost a lot of their meaning throughout time. And when Smoke Signals came out and when it was created, it reintroduced these ideas and said, hey, this is ours, we're gonna take it back. So Native communities loved the movie Smoke Signals as it showed off their culture, and it was lighthearted and comedic in the way that it did so, that it was kind of a stab against cultural appropriation. So stereotypes is by far the most obvious concept in this movie, very easy to understand within this movie, as it shows like Victor's whole personality is based on what an indigenous person is supposed to be. I mean, that's how he kind of knew who he was at the beginning of the movie. That was his whole identity. And also it gave the narrative a lot of the time to Thomas that you aren't Indian unless you act a certain way, which Victor was kind of forcing on Thomas. And he even made fun of him a lot of the time, calling him like a medicine man or a noble savage, using stereotypes to make fun of one another, kind of reclaiming it for themselves. And it's kind of a comedic stab at one another, which acknowledges the stereotypes and that they're even aware of them within the film. Identity is even more prevalent than stereotyping was. It's pretty much the sole purpose of this film, which was to find out who you really are, as it's two Native characters traveling to Arizona with one another, taking the entire movie searching for themselves while assisting one another. Heritage also plays a significant role in shaping their identities as they grapple with the legacy of their ancestors and who they're supposed to be to fit into their futures. The film explores how individual experiences shape one's sense of self, which teaches us that identity is not fixed, but rather a fluid concept. At the beginning of this movie, they are completely opposite, and then slowly their personalities mush together and they become best friends. Not completely the same, but they learn who they're supposed to be and who they should be based on one another. So resistance is shown in this movie based off the fact that they resist the oppressive forces that have shaped them their whole lives, getting pushed around as they refuse to conform to their expectations of who they're supposed to be, but instead they learn through themselves and figure it out for one another. As they resist the powerful form of cultural assimilation, and Smoke Signals, it serves as a reminder of the strength and resilience that is marginalized in communities today, and how to face adversity and resist change based on what society wants you to do, and instead find your own path and become who you're really supposed to be. So I feel like survivance is introduced kind of differently in this movie, as I feel like it becomes a metaphor for the quest that they're on, surviving in their lives and making their mark on the world as they travel across it, discovering who they're really supposed to be through their humor, their storytelling, and personal growth. It powerfully illustrates how survivance can be achieved in even the most challenging situations. And crossing the country is no easy feat, and they did it while learning who they're supposed to be. So if you haven't seen the movie Smoke Signals, I really recommend watching it. It's quite a funny movie, and you can kind of take any of those 6 core concepts and place them throughout different points in the movie, and it really does fit. I feel like it covers Indigenous culture very well today, and it was made like over 20 years ago, and it's a great movie, it's funny, and I feel like it's really worth the watch.
Way back when, we were having a feast on our reservation. A good old feast. We didn't have a whole lot of food. Just a little bit of deer meat, a huge vat of mashed potatoes, some Coke, and fry bread. But the fry bread made all the difference in the world. You see, a good piece of fry bread turned any meal into a feast. Everybody sat at the tables waiting for the cooks to come with the fry bread. They waited and waited. But you see, there was 100 Indians at that feast and only 50 pieces of fry bread. Arlene kept trying to figure out what to do. I mean, it was her magical fry bread that everybody wanted, but Arlene knew what to do. You see, Arlene's fry bread was magic. Arlene was magic. She knew how to feed 100 Indians with only 50 pieces of fry bread. She went out to talk to the people. "Listen," she said. "There are 100 Indians here and only 50 pieces of fry bread." Everybody was mad. There was going to be a fry bread riot for sure. But then Arlene said, "But I have a way to feed you all." She took a piece of fry bread, she held it over her head, and she ripped it in half.